Hello, I'm Adam Berry, and for tonight's sleep story, I'm going to take you back a few thousand years to Roman England and the sacred spring of Aquae Sulis. Before we begin, get under the covers, rest your weary head upon the soft pillow. Allow it to envelop you and begin to close your eyes. Take a big, slow, deep breath in and out. And in and out. And if you are ready, we will now begin. Our journey starts on the west side of the city of Bath in southwest England. We are standing outside some magnificent townhouses which were built in Georgian England between 1767 and 1774. They are a superb semicircular vista of architecture, and it's a wonderful place to begin our journey into history in this fascinating city. The townhouses occupy 500 feet of land and sweep round the most beautiful patch of lush green grass. The sweeping effect that is caused by the shape they adopt gives you a sense of calm and grandeur. Nowadays, many of these houses have been turned into offices, but they have kept their very simple yet magnificent facade, which in its simplicity overwhelms you with a sense of stillness, creating a beautiful antithesis to their sweeping setting. As you adopt a moment of stillness, which reflects the royal crescent of Bath, your imagination takes you back to 1774. You can almost hear the rattle and neigh of the horses and carriages trekking over the cobbled streets. The reins of the horses jangling on their flanks as the most important people of Georgian Britain go about their business. The street lamps alone overhang the crescent and punctuate the grandeur of this wonderful street. Now electrified, just by looking at them, you can almost hear the whistle and cheer of the lamplighters who used to frequent this street to fill the lamps with their oil to burn through the crisp Somerset night. This most glorious crescent overlooks the Royal Victoria Park, within which, on a still day, you can see a number of squirrels rummaging and flourishing through the emerald woodland. Finches, magpies, and ravens will flutter above you in this beautiful parkland, subtly directing you back to the city centre, along the Royal Avenue, where the city of Bath hosts its Piece de la Resistance. Now one of England's most popular tourist destinations, the Roman baths are simply epic. The building of the baths have blended into the city so subtly that you would almost not be able to notice them, were it not for the hustle and bustle of the popularity of this most historic of sites. Aquae Sulis, or the Waters of Sulis, is a place of magical healing, recovery, and worship. Built in Roman times under the instructions of Emperor Claudius, a place of leisure and of community was erected here on this very land over 2,000 years ago, and many parts of it are still standing today. The town got its name of Aquae Sulis because of the feature of the naturally heated spring which emerged on the Earth's surface at this very point. The water is warmed through by the Earth's core temperature, providing a hot, bubbling, calming spring of water that the Romans believed to be of the gods. As you enter the Roman baths, now a museum, the first thing you will notice is the rectangle of water below you. Now with a jade colouring, the 1.6 metre deep pool has a sense of magic about it. It holds your gaze for much longer than expected, and your eyes get lost staring into the pool as your imagination starts to go back to 60 AD, and you immediately begin to imagine the Romans walking about this great place, performing their daily tasks. Other visitors mill about below you, and they fade into insignificance as their modern-day dress doesn't fit your narrative. Then your eyes begin to deceive you, and you start to see Romans walking about the bath's edge. Actors dressed as Romans suspend your disbelief for a very slight moment, and it proves just another example of this very place and how it can transport you back to Roman Britain. Once the trance that the tranquility of the jade-green bath has caused is broken, you realize your surroundings and begin to take in the bath skyline. As you are stood on the upper deck of the Roman baths, amongst the greatest leaders of the Roman Empire, such as Julius Caesar, Claudius, Constantine the Great, not only are you physically elevated, but you feel emotionally elevated to be surrounded by such historic company. The Bath skyline is a thing of beauty, especially if you catch it on a long summer's day. The Gothic cathedral steeple overlooks the Aquae Sulis and reminds you of the importance of the deities that the bath was built to honour. Another key feature of the Bath skyline is the modern-day Thermae Spa, which towers up into the clouds and offers guests the opportunity to bathe just like the Romans did, in water heated up by this natural hot spring. But as opposed to being sunk below ground level, you are indeed towering over this great, ancient city. Once you have finished on the upper terrace, you descend to the ground level and can look at the true magic of this astounding slice of history. You are shown the sacred spring of Aquae Sulis, which is how the great bath is heated. Water from the sacred spring is warmed from the earth's core, which is the very reason that the Romans believed in the great healing power of this wonderful place. As you gaze into the deep water, your imagination gets lost as the bubbles rise through the water and burst into the air. With each bubble, your mind's eye takes you on the long journey, a journey similar to that of the water that it has taken from the center of the earth to where you now gaze. You see the bubbles gently pop and burst away on the surface of the calmest water you have ever seen. As you progress through this marvelous museum, you come across one of the largest statues you have ever seen. A huge circular face stares at you with eyes as sympathetic as you would expect of a Roman deity. Its huge moustache gives this statue a friendly demeanor, one of a welcoming nature and compassion. The hair, made of stone, is a mane that would make a lioness proud. The facial hair is a ruse, however, as Sulis Minerva is the Roman goddess of this great place. The hair completes a circular shape, and once you have got used to looking into the eyes of this goddess, you are immediately filled with warmth and understanding for this temple of healing. This feeling that comes from the head of Sulis Minerva, which marked the front of the temple, is one that guides you as you imagine Romans underneath her statue, coming and going from this place of worship. You begin to hear the clatter of Roman armor of the soldiers who frequented this great temple, combined with the citizens of Bath who kept the upkeep of the temple and worked with the high priests to keep the schedule of worship in order. Roman Britain was a fascinating place, and we owe so much of our 21st century lives to this great race of people. Many towns that we know today in Britain are thanks to the Romans, like Camalodunum, which is now known as Colchester, Venter, which is now Winchester, and there was Londinium, which is now the great city of London. The technology they brought to London is evident, where you are now standing at the Great Bath, as they were the first people to bring in the use of aqueducts and irrigation systems to flush water away from their towns and cities. They managed to connect all of their towns and cities together with a vast network of roads which allowed them to get key supplies to their dedicated armies. Back at the Great Bath, you then progress past this vast sun-like statue and descend further into this museum of wonder and history. Artifacts galore face you, from Roman coins to farming tools and clothing, Like all great museums, it's like you are being transported back in time, back over 2,000 years, to when life was very different. It's almost uncanny how much of what the Romans did and used you can recognize today when so much time has passed. Whether it's water jugs, jewellery, or tablets of worship, the interest and intrigue that each item conjures up in your imagination is really quite amazing. You can picture a Roman lady pouring water into the great bath, or high priests gathering their congregations together for one of their important worships. And each item you stare at and learn about, the story in your head becomes more and more entwined in how these items were used and the stories of the ancient people who used them. You then progress a few hundred yards through the great temple and museum to the saunas that the Romans used. As astounding as the Great Bath is, the saunas are just as epic. Built off of the ground to allow water to flow underneath, which would then heat the room, you begin to marvel at just what great engineers the Romans were. In the saunas, the Romans would begin to relax, much like a modern-day spa. Whether it's being enveloped in the heat of the room or getting massages from each other, this is where the Romans really came to enjoy themselves and see off the day. They understood fully the healing power of breathing and regenerating the skin through the use of massage, and often would use the most fragrant of oils like frankincense and myrrh to help clear the pores and cleanse the skin. As you sit down in the saunas of Aquae Sulis, you begin to relax. Your shoulders start to drop, and you enjoy the peace and quiet of the environment you are surrounded by. You begin to understand that this holiest of places isn't just a great bath for healing, but that the Romans built a town that emanates stillness and peace. It begins to wash over you, and the air seems somewhat more still than normal. You feel connected, not just to your present, but to the past that this museum has taken you to. For the Romans clearly understood their humanity and how being at one with nature is part of what makes us human. Sat here in the sauna, you suddenly feel connected to the earth. You feel Mother Earth supporting you from her core, and allowing you to feel free, relaxed, and present in this calmest of places. Never before has a museum been able to connect you to what makes you feel so very human. You begin to understand that the stillness of the great bath is representative of the stillness you are experiencing now, of the stillness and calmness of the earth. The heat in the sauna and in the great spring represents your happiness and the love that radiates out of your being. And the sun-shaped head of Sulis Minerva, combined with the connection to the earth's core, is your light, your truth. It guided your ancestors over 2,000 years ago, and it guides you now in this very moment. Sat here in this sauna, peace is all about you. Connection and understanding is informing you of who you are and how you feel deeply rooted and centered. Your breath begins to slow. Your body starts to relax. And your imagination drifts off to a simpler time, one you have experienced before, just like those who passed on this very ground before you. You relax more and more, and your imagination drifts you away to the time of your forefathers.